Hey, everybody, I'm Joey.
And I'm Rachel, and this is Good Things to Watch with Joey and Rachel, a podcast with two pals who watch a lot of movies and TV. We'll be taking a deep dive into our favorite films and shows and sharing insights as to what you should be watching too.
Today, we'll be breaking down the hit 90s franchise that changed all the rules when it comes to the world of horror, Scream.
And just a word of warning, these episodes may contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movies and shows we're talking about today, what are you waiting for? Go watch it all and then come back.
Rachel, I just want to start today by admiring, and I don't do this enough, your sense of agenda making.
I have a lot of practice.
I know, and I see your agendas in all forms. And today I'm looking at ours and I'm seeing some topics that we wanted to discuss. And I see at the very top, I know today we're here to talk about Scream, but I feel like it's impossible. And I'm almost wondering if we should set up its own podcast for the future, but to not talk about Halloween Kills. We're so close to Halloween right now. It's about a week away. And that movie happened.
It happened. I don't know if it's for the better or worse, but it did happen. What do you think?
I think it's polarizing. It's dividing. Like, it's interesting to see. Like, I see a lot of these two camps out there. People who loved it, like absolutely loved it. Like I see a lot of people putting it in like their top lists of 5 of like top Halloween movies, and then I see people who absolutely hate it. I remember there was even a kid that I saw in the theater, and he was just chatting with me on like online, I think, a session about it because there's all Halloween fans going to see it that night, and he hated it walking out. And I was like, I kind of liked it. I think they could have left 2018 alone and ended it there. Kind of, it didn't have the same feeling as H2O to Resurrection. But it felt a little bit kind of like that, of like, oh, well, you had a great ending there and that could have been it, but you just went ahead. But I think as far as going ahead was, they kept all the same people. The story continued. It was a lot like Halloween 2 in a way. There was great callbacks to the rest of the franchise. The kills were fantastic. So gruesome, I couldn't even look at most of them. And I think it made him scary. I think, but I think there are definitely things with that I didn't like, and it had a lot of sequel stuff to it and a lot of little too nostalgia bait. And I think if they showed me, so there's two things that are great. There's two things about it that are divisive for me. It's like flashbacks and new footage of 1978's footage. And I'm rambling, so I'm sorry about that, but I hate that they showed any flashbacks to the 1978 film, because when they're introducing some of the characters from that, Marion Chambers, Tommy Doyle, what was the little girl's name? Lindsay, yeah. When they're showing that and they had to cut to scenes from the 1978 film, I felt a little insulted. I'm like, guys, come on, that is so cheap. We don't need to see that. But the 1978 stuff that was shot new, I thought was so cool, and I was really excited about it. It really looked like that movie time. The grain, the filter, whatever they used over the footage looked great, and the look-alike they got for Sam Loomis, Dr. Loomis, was so perfect and spot on. And I saw like a before and after makeup tutorial of the guy, and they nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
I agree. You know, honestly, though, I have not, other than you and what you're saying here, I have not seen anybody in my camp say that they loved it. It's either been I hated it or a meh. I didn't hate it as much as I expected to going in, because I'm just kind of like done with the Halloween franchise at this point, rebooting itself over and over again. The first 15 minutes I thought was fantastic, where they went back and just retconned a few things. I thought that was great. And like you said, it looked great. It had the look and feel of the first one. That said, though, I really was immediately put off by the reintroduction of our first characters. You know, I didn't enjoy Anthony Michael Hall as Tommy at all. I And I don't know if it was his portrayal of Tommy or the writing of Tommy. I just didn't enjoy it. I mean, they end up being jerks in a bar the very first time you see them, you know, and Tommy just takes over a talent show to introduce himself and talk about what happened 40 years ago. And I also didn't like him, just his progression throughout the movie. I just thought he was stale and stupid.
I thought I agree with you on that. I think if Halloween 2 had happened, and I stand by this the whole time, I think this series would have more reasoning for existing and more reasoning for people to know the legend. Because to me, when she says they killed 5 people, and don't get me wrong, I love 2018. I think it's great. But it's just kind of like, yeah, but how many other people have done stuff like that? How many other situations have multiple people died from a single killer all throughout the country? And it was just kind of like a little full of their own story almost. And that's what it comes across as. It's like, who the F are these guys up here on the stage? Like, I feel like if I was in that bar and they did interrupt to do that, it'd be like, I'm sorry that happened to you, but people have horrible stuff happen all the time. But if it was like connected, if Halloween 2 had happened and, you know, the legend of him killing 16 people on Halloween night and stalking his prey to the hospital, and just kind of that crazy idea of this relentless killing machine that all happened on one night, I think then it would be more notable. And then people would be like, oh, you were the kids from that house in the beginning of that night. I think that would be more, but now I think it's like, who would hear of this story?
You've got a point there, and I think you're absolutely right. Then we go through the film, and you have Tommy leading a mob of people against this man, this innocent man, and then him feeling terrible about it, but then leading a mob against Michael. So it's just he doesn't learn. There's nothing progressive about his character throughout the film. I just, but there were things I did like you said, the kills were great.
Yeah. I have a problem with Lonnie, the character of Lonnie. I know they referenced him in 2018, and I know he exists, and they say his name a couple times in the original Halloween. However, I think to reintroduce him as somebody who is traumatized by Michael Myers from having bumped into him, who could have just been anybody on the street, is a little, I don't know. I just didn't see the point of having him. It just seemed like, oh, they needed another person in there for no reason. And it just kind of, I didn't like it. Just kind of felt like shoehorned in. I didn't like that they're trying to, I'm trying to think of the right word for it. I guess, superlatate these people. Like, who, like, it was like when Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers came out, and Paul Rudd was Tommy Doyle. Awesome. But anyway, I just think, like, back then I'm like, oh, Tommy Doyle, real stretch, huh? You're really stretching for characters here. And the people who adopted Laurie, who got the Strode house, you're really digging at the bottom of the barrel for connections. That's what that felt like to me.
Yeah. And I really do think that Sheriff Brackett was really underused.
You're not the only person I heard say that too. And I totally agree with you. Sheriff Brackett, and I liked his performance. He was eerie. Something about him was really scary.
Mm-hmm. My husband is also been, I mean, one of his biggest comments is that he really he really thinks that they should have had a moment between Laurie and Sheriff Brackett, just as an acknowledgement.
Maybe they had it and it got cut from the scripts.
Yeah, but of all the things they could have cut, they cut that. If they actually shot something, I just think that just was an underused moment.
Yeah,
we could have done a lot more than that with that. But I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I kind of expected to, but I didn't. So that says something. I really do think I do have to make a note of the representation in the film. The way they did it was just horrible too. Big John, Little John, come on.
Oh yeah.
Characters can't even have their own names. I just felt that was just a slap in the face.
I blocked that out of my memory. I totally agree. It's so insulting because it's like, I just feel for how far we are, and for um especially for someone where Jamie Lee Curtis is like a producer on it too, it's surprising to see a joke like that about two gay men and having it be such a superficial representation. I thought it was yeah, definitely a dumb joke, and I think it's insulting because it's just like they have I don't know, the name thing I thought was silly, and I just feel like they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to make a joke out of that. But also, I thought on one note, I did think it was cool that they had someone living in the Myers house and it wasn't some like we have to move here and like because no one else would buy it sort of thing. It's just like, oh no, it's great property on a great street. People are gonna buy this. It happened 40 years ago. Enough's enough. We're moving into it. So I kind of like that. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely think Allison, the granddaughter, was significantly better in this one. And maybe I was a little too harsh on her from the first one. Um, but and I think it was her first movie. She probably learned a lot, and I just liked her a lot better.
Yeah, sure. I I'd have to watch Halloween 2018 again to remember what you're talking about, because I think I kind of blocked a lot of that from my memory. So I don't remember her being bad. I don't remember disliking her. Maybe I didn't. But
She reminded me of like a plate. Like, oh, there she is, and she's fine. She's just fine.
She's fine. She's just a plate.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now
I don't know how you come up with this stuff, but that was pretty good.
But now it's like a plate with really good dinner on it and some really nice scenes. And I just thought she fit better. And I thought, I think they better develop that family. I wonder what's going to happen with Karen. I'm sure I know from the movie, and spoilers we said already, but Karen is killed at the end. But I mean, this new trilogy seems to be kind of retconny. Like they brought back the cop who's Coach Yost from Remember the Titans. I forget his name. But they brought him back and he gets stabbed in the neck. And also, I mean, his legs got ran over in the 2018 one, but he's back and he's fine and he's in the hospital. So who knows? I could see them bringing her back for that reason, but I do think she's probably dead.
That could very well be. And same thing with the Tommy and Sheriff Brackett. Who knows if they're actually dead?
It's a really interesting time in horror where things are revived and brought back. And
that's a beautiful segue. I love it. I love it.
Well, I just think I like a lot of people are having problems with this time frame that we're in with these retcons and things like that. But I think for certain movies, it's worth the shot. And I think Halloween was a good move because where we left off in Halloween in both the Rob Zombie universe and the regular timeline with Resurrection, or not regular, but the H2O timeline with Resurrection and Halloween 6 with that other timeline. It was just like all these dead ends. Like let it have at least a good finish, that's why I wanted 2018 is like, and I thought after 2018 is okay, go the anthology route now. Bring back the Halloween 3 treatment because it was cool and they could do it. And Trick or Treat showed us they can do it. And that movie's having a lot of trouble getting their sequel out. So I don't think they will. So I just think I don't know. I think it's cool that some of them are doing it, and I think it's like Candyman is interesting. I like the Curse of Chucky, and now the TV series that I've been kind of watching, and I've actually been enjoying it. But I think some franchises can do it and some can't, and I'm interested to see what Scream has to bring to this because Scream's always been the commentator on horror. And I think that was a product of the 90s. And I was born in 1990, so I was a kid in it, but I looked up to these teenagers in these movies and like movies like Scream and Bring It On and things like that, because there's something about the 90s that I feel like they kind of had this arrogance and confidence and like kind of know-how with everything and the self-awareness and this whole meta kind of look at things because they have all these. I think the 90s was the first time where it was acknowledged really that all these different forms of media have always been there and available. And now you can kind of look at it all and commentate on it more. because that was like the first time I think we had like a library of stuff, because the 80s and 70s were great, I think, for producing a lot of great cinema, and especially with horror. So the 90s was cool to take a look back at it. But what Scream has always done is each movie has been different in what it comments on. Like, first one is just on horror movies, second one's on sequels, the third one's on trilogies, the fourth one's all about the remake trend that was happening at the time. And this one I'm certain is going to be on the retcon, especially from the title. It looks like it's riffing off of Halloween 2018, as it's just Scream. But I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with this one. I never know. They have three main characters that have been through, four if you kind of count the Scream voice, but like, what's going to happen? Are they going to die? Are they going to finally pass the torch? Or is there a way for them to exit and not die? I don't know.
Looking back at when Scream first came out, I remember being in the theater, and I can't quite recall if the theater was filled, but it certainly seemed like it. And I don't want to sound all dramatic about it, but it was electric in there. People were excited that this was the first big thing in the horror movie world in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, a lot of us, I could tell by the audience reaction, that we were just thrilled to be watching something that actually was taking a look at everything that we've been watching over the years, and being self-referential and being meta, before meta was even really a thing. This was like the first probably of its kind. And it did so much to reinvigorate our feelings of the horror genre of the time.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I love how it looks at movies and acknowledges movies. And I think like there are movies from the 70s and 80s and probably 60s, like all exist to them. So I mean, even Candyman, something that came out relatively around the same couple of years as it, they acknowledge it. So I think it's, in a sense, it identifies more with us, and I think some of the writing works with that. There's still some of the stupid horror stuff all throughout all of them, like the dumb choices some of them make. But for have the main girl say, like, on the phone in the first movie talking about how she doesn't like horror movies because it's features dumb girls being stalked by some killer who's running up the stairs versus running when they should be running out the front door. And it's like, and then, you know, it's funny because that very scene after, she's running up the stairs, but they give a reason why she's not running out the front door. And it's fun like that. And I think because the killer's a little smarter, the killer's seen all the movies too. So it's a really, really interesting franchise. And I feel like for those who haven't seen it, it's so branded with the 90s, but it's fantastic.
Well, looking at the new one, we're talking about reboots and retcons. So what do you feel about it, and what do you see happening?
I think it's going to be more on retcons. I think we're going to literally hear them talk about Halloween 2018. I don't know that it's going to be as passing of the torch as they're trying to make it out to be. I'm not sure what that's going to be. I wonder how much Scream 4's events have to do with this, because there was a like thing at the end of that one where everyone was watching the kills and talking about it online, and Jill was kind of seen like as a weird hero. So I wonder how much that's going to influence that. Or I don't know. I never watched a Scream show, so that could have definitely been that influence. So maybe that story is already wrapped up. I am nervous for our main three. I'm nervous for Dewey, Gale, and Sydney, of course. I think it's going to be very tied to the past, because here's what I think is we're doing all these retcons to tie back to the originals. So what I think is going to happen is it's going to be somebody, the killer's going to be somebody that is tied to the past. And it's not going to be into someone new. And if it is, I think I'd be pretty disappointed. And even though Scream 4, it should have been someone new, I was still in a way slightly like, about it, like finding out who it was at the end. But I think I strongly believe, and we've talked about this a lot, that it's either going to be one of two people. I think it's going to either be Randy, and he somehow survived, and he's going to be some maniac that's been responsible for all of these things, and he's kind of been pulling the strings from behind, and I feel like he's might be in on it. Or I think another huge possibility is Stu. I do know that Stu was a big person that was thought of to come back for Halloween Scream 3. But I think there's a chance he survived at the end of Scream 1. They've shown clips from his house, which, yeah, it was a final set piece for the end of Scream 1, but would they really go back to the house? It's his home. And I don't know. And the fact that there are characters with the Randy's last name in it says something to me. The fact that they showed Jamie Kennedy did a reaction to it on YouTube, and you and I were talking about this, Rachel. But here's the thing. Why? I never seen him do that before for 3 or 4, like yeah, he looked genuine, but I don't see any other reason why he would have gone and done that.
He looked genuine, but he's also an actor.
He is an actor.
And he starts it off with, I know you guys, a lot of you guys have been asking me to do a reaction video on this, and he's very kind of just blasé about it, but he is an actor.
Why wouldn't he have seen that already?
Anything with
I don't believe it. Why wouldn't he have seen it already?
I just don't completely trust it.
You're telling me those 3 other actors have zero connection, and anyone who's making that movie have zero connection with the rest of the people who've been a part of it? And the fact that they're going to have characters who are related to him in it, I don't buy it for a second. Something's up there.
And I know that he looked very genuine in his reactions, but that could potentially be because that's the first time he's seeing that footage. Just because somebody acts in a film doesn't mean that they see the rest of the footage. So he could be honestly reacting to a lot of it.
Something else I noticed from the trailers of Halloween or Scream, I keep going back to Halloween for so on that, is that the killer looks very tall and he sounds older. And I know, what's the guy's name? Roger
Jackson.
I know Roger Jackson's getting older too, but I feel like they might be utilizing that a little bit more to kind of showcase like, all right, he's a more worn, been there killer. And maybe it's him with a younger apprentice, because there's usually 2 people who are the killers. So I think it's possible like one of the kids is the killer too. But I think maybe like a crazed maniac. Maybe it's his son. Maybe it's him and Judy Hicks's son. I think the timeline's too long for him to have done it beforehand. But I do think he's alive. I think she was hiding something in the 4th one. She was weird. I think they might connect that. I don't know. I think there's something up.
I look at Randy, and I went back to the first one, and I watched their interactions in the video store, and I was trying to think of ways that they could retcon if they could retcon everything, they'd have to be able to think of scenes in Scream and be able to legitimately kind of work that retcon in to what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost seems like, could be that if Randy was going to be behind all this, that he may or may not have known that Stu and Billy were involved. It all depends on how deeply he was involved. Because he honestly kind of, I wouldn't want to say seems afraid of them, but he is kind of intimidated by them in the video store, or that could be Randy acting. Who knows?
Could be an act.
But I talked to you about this the other day, and I was kind of thinking as, so far when you get to Scream 3 and you get to Roman and you find out about Roman's past, and he starts talking about how he was the one that set Billy and Stu in motion.
Mm-hmm.
But it also took him a while to find out where his mother, Maureen Prescott, I think she was going by Rena Reynolds when she was in Hollywood, took him a few years to be able to find her. And of course, this is all pre kind of being able to really find somebody quickly on the internet. And who better to locate somebody that was in a horror movie than Randy? So what if Randy set this all in motion by guiding Roman to where Maureen was?
Yeah, possible. Another crisscross that I could also see happening, just because it'd be wild, is both of them are still alive. Both kind of hit away. Randy is fine, Stu is fine, but for different reasons. Like maybe Randy's not the bad guy, but the family hit him away. and just to protect them. And maybe Stu has been alive too, and it's been some behind the scenes investigation between 2 and 4.
And if by chance Randy was behind this in a maniacal way, what would be the goal?
Mm-hmm.
I would think he'd have two. Either he's so crazy that he just wants to see a series follow through because he's a horror junkie, or because of his other thing throughout the films was let the geek get the girl. And maybe he kind of feels like this would be the time to finally get Sydney.
I think it's a bit of both. I think maybe they'll reference the geek gets the girl thing, but I think it's gonna be more about him following through and reviving the franchise to its former glory kind of thing, and bringing back someone from the past kind of thing. So I think that's the route we're gonna see. I don't think it's gonna be some. I think now that I've said out loud, I think that Judy Hicks with Stu and that kid who's playing her son are gonna be the combination we're gonna see there, because I really do believe something's up, and I think that kid is too famous. I forget his name, but the one from 13 Reasons Why and
Dylan
that Don't
Minnette?
Breathe movie. Yeah. And I think he is going to be his son. And I think he's going to be a killer too, because you don't see him in any of the scenes of the trailer.
That is potentially it. So now, looking back, how do you see the scene of Randy's death playing out?
What do you mean from Scream?
Well, because, so if we were going to retcon it and Randy's alive, what do you think happened? Because, the killer drags Randy into the van.
Yeah.
They tussle a bit, and you can't see Randy being stabbed, but you can see the knife, going up and down in the air. But then you see Gail and Dewey opening up the van to Randy's dead body.
I think a few moments later on the gurney, he spits up little blood. Dewey survived Scream 2 and 1, got stabbed twice. And I think maybe the fact that no one was there to protect them, help them, let him get blah, blah, blah. But I do think, I don't know necessarily that Scream 2 is going to be a master plan involved with everything. I think Scream 2 was very much a reaction to Scream 1. I don't think Billy's mother had anything to do with anything. And I think her and Mickey just went on their own thing. It was a copycat. I think that's what they'll acknowledge. It's like, oh, we didn't mean for that to happen, but it did,
Right. I mean, how are they going to count on some woman who was jilted by her husband, whose reaction to being jilted by her husband is not to just divorce him, but to abandon her whole family. And then, of course, after she's abandoned her family, she finds out that her son has become a serial killer who tries to kill a particular girl who fights back and kills him. So now her answer is to just kill this girl who killed her son, who tried to kill her. So it just seems kind of, and then she goes on the internet to find a random psycho who's going to assist her with this.
Scream 2, I still love, but it's very much a product of sequelitis and the 90s, which I don't think it even is in the 90s, in 99. I don't really remember.
Scream 2 was 97.
Oh, wow. That was really earlier than I thought.
It was.
But what's your favorite in the franchise of all of them?
The first one. The first one is something that I've watched many, many times.
It's iconic.
It is iconic. The second one, like you said, sequelitis, but I didn't hate it, but
it's a good sequel.
I didn't love it either. I did hate it from the point of Randy dying on, because I'm one of those people that thought the series was better with Randy. I mean, I understand that the best way to get people's emotions all up in a
that was a huge deal,
is to kill the favorite off. I totally get that, especially now. But at the time, it was just like, dudes, what are you doing? 3, I think I appreciate a little more on a repeated viewing. At first, I really didn't like it. They gave Maureen a backstory, so she wasn't just somebody who was sleeping around. She was sleeping around because she was traumatized by what happened to her. Via the John Miller character, who is very Weinstein-esque, which is really kind of ironic considering who it's produced by. but they did give her that backstory. So at least Sydney can go, okay, my mom wasn't just this. There was a reason to it. And she was traumatized and she was a
Yeah.
victim. Um,
I mean, how can you forgive Scream 3 for Courtney Cox's bangs, though?
I don't know, but that seemed to kind of be the thing at the time. Around the time Mila Jovovich had done it, a couple other actresses had done it. It seemed to be like the in thing.
It was an interesting choice, and I just heard some. I feel like I've heard a lot of interviews of Courtney Cox being like, "Yeah, I don't know what's happening," but no, but Courtney Cox is lovely no matter what she looks like, no matter what look she rocks. But I think Scream 3 was different. Definitely the weak link out of them, but it's not terrible either. It's fine. It's a cool connection. I like the trilogy aspect. Randy's tape, I think, is an iconic point in horror films, period.
Right. I think, and that also introduces his sister, Martha.
She was wonderful in The Princess Diaries.
And on Roseanne.
Oh, right. She's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she was DJ's kind of girlfriend for a little while.
Right. DJ, that little kid who still looks exactly the same as an adult man in his 40s.
But what's interesting to note is that she apparently is going to be in the new Scream.
That's something to be considered for our theory.
Potentially the assumed mother of the Meeks twins.
Well, that sounds like they could be a whole bunch of killers, that family, to me. Good luck catching those killers then.
But now let's look at it from the Stu angle. Stu would have to survive a TV set to the face.
Yeah.
Which I guess, he could be severely facially mangled.
Oh, that'd be fun.
And he could have suffered some more brain trauma due to being electrocuted, but I guess he could survive. Crazier things have happened in the world of soap operas, so why not? I guess he could just be, because they could always retcon his story too, because at the time his excuse for his motives were peer pressure.
I think there was more to it. I think there was more to it than that. I feel like that was a throwaway line from a killer. I don't even think it was a throwaway line from the movie. I think he just said it, because
right. He was having a breakdown at the time on the phone, and some of his funniest lines came from that breakdown on the phone. But when Billy was explaining his motives to Sydney, Stu's reaction, he was honestly kind of surprised upon hearing that his father had slept with Sydney's mother. And so Stu really seemed kind of shocked by this news, like he hadn't known Billy's true motives.
I think Stu is just, I think he has problems. I think he's crazy in his own way. I think he's a killer. And I think that's what drew him in. I think, and that's what Billy probably took advantage of, is that he had some sick ideas of his own. But I think that, I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to see just more of his obsession with wanting to do that. If it's Stu. And I think also he's popular right now. He's just in that He's All That remake, which was a terrible, terrible movie. And you should really wash your eyes out at one of those science, like chemistry sinks after watching it. However, he was a good point in it. I wonder, and I feel like he's popular right now, so I wonder if they'll ride that wave, and I wonder if they kind of foresaw that.
I know he's kind of really eager to come back. So who knows? What do you think his true motive might be?
Revenge at this point. Watching her rise, Sydney rise, the fan, the person that took him down, the person they were initially after. Something with the movies. They're obviously obsessed with movies too. Everyone in the first one. I think Randy is number one, but all of them are really into movies in the first one. And I think people should remember that. And there's a lot of influence. And Mickey's motive in season 2 in the second movie is the movies. But I think revenge mostly at this point, coming back, reclaiming his title as Ghostface.
And he was,
imagine if we're totally wrong.
He was another one that claimed to have had a crush on Sydney. So
It's
it's
a
just
great
amazing
line.
how it all ends up being about Sydney. People have a crush on Sydney, they're terrorizing Sydney. So, and you're right, somebody like Cotton Weary, who is gone now, he was always upset that Sydney always got the fame and not him.
Cotton Weary. All these Roseanne actors in this series.
I always hated Cotton Weary. I'm not a Liev Schreiber fan. Um, and I think that was the jarring thing about Scream 3 to me, even though I get the pleasure of seeing Cotton die at the beginning of
Rachel.
Scream 3. I'm
Rachel.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh my
sorry. It was my
gosh.
payoff for watching the first 15 minutes be all about
Oh,
him. Because when I was
yeah.
sitting there in the theater watching this, I'm like, what is this crap? It's all about him right now. Then when he dies, it was the big payoff, but still, it was kind of like that kind of set the tone for the rest of the movie for me. It was like, started it off all wrong. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a hater, so what? But I can't help it.
Imagine if Dewey is the first kill.
Oh my God. I think people would just flip. I do feel
Like
like
that
he
phone
has
call,
to die in this one, maybe, because
like
when
maybe
you
that phone
do,
call opens up.
maybe, I mean, when you do a reboot, generally, probably somebody, one of the legacy characters probably has to die. I
I
think
think
that we're
Dewey's the
starting
most
to set
likely.
those kind of rules with the Rise of Skywalker and Last Jedi and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, you're right.
so I'm wondering if we're starting to set the tone by do that. We do a reboot and we do something horrible or kill off one of the legacy characters. So if that's going to ring true, then somebody's going to die, and most likely would probably be Dewey, since he's escaped death so many times now.
A lot. Yeah, he's a cat. I wonder if he actually has 9 shots at him. We'll see. I'm gonna rewatch again and just count specifically for that. Um, I want to chat about a little bit because we kind of talked a lot about the first 3 and the 5th one, but it's kind of ironic because the 4th one I felt was real sleeper hit.
We really, especially after 3, I did not expect to enjoy 4, but I wanted to see it anyway, of
Yeah,
course. And I found myself really, really enjoying it. I thought Hayden Panettiere was
love her,
awesome. Her
love her.
character was great.
I wish they
Um,
didn't. I hope she comes back, and I don't think she will. I think she's dead. But she was so strong. Oh my, yeah, she was awesome.
she was. They really did well with that. I honestly, usually there's some kind of inkling where, towards the middle of the movie, I've figured out who I think is the killer. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm not, or sometimes I've changed my mind. But with 4, I can honestly say that I did not expect Emma Roberts to be the killer. I
I
had,
don't
I had,
know
what
if
was
I
it? Who was
expected
it?
that either.
Rory? Was it Rory or
Rory
Kieran?
Culkin.
Rory is in. I had kind of thought maybe him,
Yeah,
but her I did not expect.
I kind of maybe thought it was even Hayden Panettiere at one point when she started talking about how she knows movies too. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Um, and it would have been cool for 2 girls. I think that would have been cool.
Yeah,
Because it's always a girl and a guy. It's always have to be a man at some point, and I don't think that's fair. Um, but I do like that it was a girl. I do like her obsession with the fame because it was kind of really going on with the social media stuff. Um, I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. I thought the one thing that bothered me, the only thing that bothered me about Scream 4 is that the killer, when he's killing people in those scenes, is clearly like a foot taller than both of those people are. And I just like took me out of it. I was really upset. And the kills are great. He's so violent and he was like, it was really intense in comparison. I thought Wes Craven did a good job upping it. And I'm interested to see what a new director has to say about the series because he's had creative control over all 4. And that's cool. You don't see that all the time for a director. But yeah, I was a little taken out that there was those 2 because I'm like, oh, you're taller in the costume. You're running around in stilts or elevator shoes. Come on.
one of the things that I did also really enjoy about 4 is, doing during the rewatch too, I was taking specific notes on Sydney's mindset throughout the
Mm-hmm.
series. And at the end of 3, you get the impression, of course, that she's actually starting to feel freer. She's going to be more open. But you really don't know what the payoff for that is. You don't know if that lasted because
Mm-hmm.
is known throughout the series to kind of reinvigorate herself and get into relationships only to have something horrible happen and then her to shut herself down again. So you don't really know at the end of 3 what's going to happen with her. So in 4, you see that she has come out of her shell. She's actually wanting to talk about her experiences now and help other people and not just hide away. And so she's written this book and she's going to be doing publicity for it. So she's willing to come home to publicize her book.
I feel like the 5th one, like from the trailer already, it looks to like she's coming into her own even more, because the 4th one almost kind of like this false sense of confidence. This time she looks like, whatever. My life has been so crazy. At this point, I have to just go with the flow and not think about it. And that's what I'm getting, the vibe I'm getting from the 1.5-minute trailer we've gotten. But I hope she has that, because I think she deserves some peace.
Right. I'm Sidney Prescott. Of course I have a gun.
It was a great line. Great line.
That's fantastic. And from what I heard, I don't know how true it is, but from what I understand, that she may even have a husband and a couple of kids coming into this one. So that would be interesting.
So I really want her to live through it. I don't know how. It would be nice for her to find peace. So, and I kind of always felt that same about, it's funny because you want these horror franchises to go on. You want the main characters to continue to be part of it. And like Jamie Lee Curtis for Halloween, Neve Campbell, and these other two with Scream. But it's like you also feel a connection with these characters. And that's why you watch these movies and watch stories in general, is because you want to see the character you like do well. Unless it's like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, where you're kind of in between, like, do I want this person to get caught? But I think that's why I'm so glad Jamie Lee Curtis came back to the Halloween franchise, because I want her to find a happy ending, and I'm still not sure she will. And I was hoping that's why I like 2018 so much. That's why I like The Dark Knight Rises so much. You gave Batman an ending. You gave him a love life with Catwoman, who is someone I think is paired up as his equal throughout the whole series, and you let him retire and live happily ever after. And I think that's a great, beautiful thing. And they ended that story. And that's what I want for this story. And I won't mind if they go to anthology after. I hope they don't remake it again. I think Michael Myers can rest for a good 20, 30 years if he wanted to and be fine. But yeah, so we'll see how they do with this one. Can she leave? Like, what does happy ever after look like for Sidney Prescott?
Right. I mean, and with a reboot, you have to kind of keep the bones, but you have to kind of make everything fresh at the same time. So all while the series has been about somebody coming after Sidney, that may not be necessarily true this time. And she just might be there as the guiding force. Or if we retcon it all, is this still going to be somehow about Sidney, only the killer has waited 10 years for the opportunity to strike again?
There's a line at the end of the 4th one that she says, like, you're forgetting the first rule of remakes, Jill, don't F with the original. And that kind of rings true to me, that I would go forward with that. Like, I don't think they'll drop the popular characters in favor of newbies. I think they're going to be the focus. I think that's the bait and switch. But I'm curious. I'm excited. I think the trailer was fantastic. And, rewatching this franchise, and I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to watch all 4. I've been stuck on Over the Garden Wall and Brand New Cherry Flavor and a bunch of other really wild crap I've been watching lately for Halloween. But it's a great series. It's a thrill to see like these major stars be a part of it throughout. And it's cool that it's been able to stick to its guns and continue to be like unapologetically itself. And I'm curious if with the change in director, which is always a big deal, like, will they respect it? Will they change it? I don't know. David Gordon Green did a great job, and I think honoring John Carpenter's legacy, and John Carpenter did the music on that. So that might be a part of that, but we'll see. I don't know. Wes Craven's not here. He's not here to help. So we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to this. And I'm, without with Halloween Kills, I was not necessarily looking forward to it. I was going into it with actually a bad attitude, because I haven't liked the reboots of Halloween. But this for me is different, and I can't explain why, but I am really looking forward to this reboot / retcon of Scream.
Yeah. Me
And I
too.
find it
it's
interesting that they're not calling it Scream 5. They're calling it Scream.
I feel like it's partially because it's, it can't really fully commit to that because it doesn't want to scare away certain audiences from a 5. But I think I think it's just gonna be very much a play on Candyman and Halloween, because Candyman was another secret sequel.
Right.
So that's what I think. Anyway, I think I don't know what else I have to say about it, because we didn't get too much, but I think it's more than enough to keep my mind racing about it like this for forever. But I don't know. Do you have any final thoughts or theories or words you want to push forward for this before we even get a second sequel with trailer? We only got one teaser.
All that this episode is just based off of one teaser. Just wait till we start seeing trailers and we can start to reformulate our theories and continue on plugging away at these. But for now, I'm just really looking forward to it, and I just hope that they give us something that is a big payoff for longtime fans of the franchise, as well as inviting and introducing this to a new audience.
But let's definitely talk more about Scream in the future and keep our fingers crossed for a great 5th installment.
That sounds great.
Thank you all so much for joining us. If you'd like what you heard here today, give us a big thumbs up. Join in on the discussion by leaving a comment. And while you're at it, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any new episodes. We'll see you next time.